Hello and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Hype. I'm your host, Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior Vice President and Executive Editor at Black Enterprise. You know I never disappoint, and you won't be disappointed today. Thank you for joining us. Listen, I don't know about you guys, but I went from becoming kind of a casual NASCAR watcher over the years to now I'm a bona fide NASCAR fan. Yes, racing and driving has always been a thing that I loved, and driving fast. Even though I never thought of myself as a professional, but I like the idea of fast cars. I mean, who doesn't? But what I'm here to talk about today is a phenomenon that many of you may not have been paying attention to, but the transition of NASCAR as a sport. We are now coming up on the 20th anniversary of a program called Drive for Diversity, which was an initiative to not only change NASCAR as a sport, expand its fan base from a kind of a regional niche sport primarily identified with the South, and yes, let's be real, with Southern white people, to now a sport that now has both a national and even an international fan base. So we've seen the transformation of the sport as a business as well as a sport, both on the track with the athletes and the pit crews, and we'll talk about that a little later, as well as in the entire sports organization, because we talk about the business of sport at Black Enterprise, not just the sport of sport. So you heard all of that, so now you know why I'm so excited. We have here with us the first Black female president of probably any NASCAR raceway, but I know of Phoenix Raceway, Latasha Causey. She is the president of Phoenix Raceway, and I'm so excited to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Alfred. Thank you so much for having me. I really am honored to be here and be talking to you today, and thank you for being a NASCAR fan.
You guys got me in. You got me. I tried to drag me in. I'm a football guy, more recently a golf guy, but now NASCAR is amazing. And again, the sport itself has always been appealing. Whether you grew up in that culture or not, driving fast cars, beautiful cars, the designs, the suits, the helmets. I happen to come from my late father was a big motorcycle guy who also, by the way, lived in Arizona where you are. That's how I got connections in Arizona. But the idea of just going fast and power and control, that's just an appeal, I think, to the American spirit. We were always that a car industry country, and so NASCAR and racing in general lends itself to that. But again, as a sport, because we did associate it with things like the Dukes of Hazzard, and I'm thinking of movies with like Boss Hogg and trying to run away from the revenuers. We're trying to find our stills, so that there's that element that says, yeah, I'm a boy, born and raised on the Jersey Shore, spent most of my life, adult life in New York, that says, yeah, that's a great fun thing to do, but it's not for us. It's not. Yeah. And then, Black Enterprise covered the launch of Drive for Diversity. And now fast forward, we're seeing, at least I'm seeing, based on even the interviews I've been conducting, both background and for Beyond the Hype, this complete transformation that we've been covering for 20 years. And now it feels like at the 20th anniversary, we're reaching kind of a crest, a critical tipping point, if you will, for NASCAR being a legitimately globally popular sport that's really expanding its fan base nationally. But listen, what I want to know, just to start this conversation off, is how did you get here? Who are you? And how did you end up in this seat, in this job, doing this very critical role?
Yes, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I am a Phoenix native. I know you mentioned me being here in Arizona. So yeah, I am the first female in the 75 years of NASCAR, the first Black female to run a track. And so I truly am honored to be in that role. Born and raised here, Phoenix, Arizona. The NASCAR track actually is not far from where my parents live, maybe 15 minutes away. My parents still live in the same house I was born and raised in. The track itself, if you will, has been a signature and a staple in our community. But Alfred, I'll be really honest with you. I never had been to a NASCAR race. I heard it, right? You can hear the sound. There's nothing like the sound of NASCAR. So you can hear the sound in the community, but I'd never been. And not until about 4 years ago. So Julie Giese, who I met you in Chicago, Julie runs the Chicago Street Race. So Julie was the president here in Arizona. Julie and I were on a panel together. So Julie had been in Arizona maybe about 4 days, 3 or 4 days. She was on a panel. We were on a panel together. The host of the panel, who was, leading our business journal, he reached out and he said, there's this new lady that moved here from Daytona. She's amazing. She's the first female to run the track in Arizona. And she needs other really great females to be around, and other community leaders. And he, I know him well. I've been a community leader in Arizona for a very long time and business leader. And he says, would you be willing to help her? And I said, absolutely, as long as she's a good person. If she's not a good person, I don't want to help her. And so, of course, Julie Giese is an amazing person. And we became very quick friends. And, usually when we have people that we're making connections for, we're doing business deals for, we don't have at the end of the day a goal of, I did this for you, so I want this back. Never in a million years did I have any of that. Julie, though, out of the kindness of her heart, she says, hey, I want you, you've been so good to me. I have my first race coming up here. It was like coming up in the next March. And she said, I'd love to host you. I'd love to have you at a NASCAR race and you can experience it in a way that it's on me. It's VIP, if you will. And I said, it sounds cool, but I don't really know. But Julie was such a great person that I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to support her. That's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to go and support Julie. So I come to the race, Alfred, and like you said you were a casual fan. I came in, I'm like, whoa, this is way different than what I thought it was on TV, right? When you, like you said, you just feel, you get all the stereotypes, I'm Black, so this is not for me. And this is not like our thing. And so and I made my husband come with me as well, to that first race. And so, we fit right in. Of course, we got the best of the best because of Julie. But the thing that I really walked away with, I was in a driver's meeting, which was the first thing, as soon as we came, the first thing that you do is you go to the driver's meeting, and I was understanding like who's who, who's what's happening here, because I didn't know anything. And, one of the first things that they did in that driver's meeting was pray. Collectively, they came together. They prayed for each other. They made sure everyone was safe. They did all these things. We see on TV, it's a sport, it's competitive, all these things, but it immediately made me feel like it was a family. And I knew that right away. But it also made me immediately feel like it was something different. So that was my exposure, if you will, to NASCAR. And then as I fast forward 4 years later, I continued to be really great friends with Julie, helping her where I could, and making connections. And I am not kidding you. I was doing what I do in business, working at a phenomenal organization. Julie and I had just had dinner a couple nights before, and then the announcement came out in Arizona that she was moving to Chicago to take on this street race, which I knew she was doing both. And she calls me and she says, what do you think about taking on the president of Phoenix Raceway? And I said, what? Like, who are you? Like, and in the moment, I'm like, absolutely. And I have all of these people that I could recommend for you. I could do all these things, but why me? And, Julie said some really amazing things about me in that moment of, you are who we need. You are what we need in regards to the direction of where NASCAR is going. Julie's been at NASCAR for over 20 years, diehard NASCAR person. And so, Julie says, you're the type of person we need in that seat. It's not because you're a Black woman. It is because you are the right person for the community, for the business. But then, oh, by the way, you also happen to be a person of color that is doing really great things in the community. And so after a lot of research, a lot of phone calls, a lot of conversations, I did take the leap to be able to take on this role. And I truly am very grateful and very humbled. And just it has been a phenomenal opportunity since last November.
Your journey is powerful. It's powerful. It's a powerful narrative, because what I've come to appreciate really over the last 10 years, but certainly over the last year, like you said, once you go to a race and you're there and you're immersed in it and you realize what this magic and this power is, not only for as a competitive sport, but as a fan experience. We can talk a little bit more about that later, in this conversation. What I learned, and I got to understand, Black Enterprise really has been covering this evolution of the drive for diversity. Max Siegel and one of my former staff editors, Janelle Hazelwood, will appreciate that I called her name out. She was a good person, who was like, every year she was like, they're inviting me to go to NASCAR for this Drive for Diversity. You got to send me. I'll go for Black Enterprise. So every year she was going and coming back and saying, yeah, they're doing this, they're doing that. One of the realizations that it certainly is underscored by your story is that most of us Black people are kind of NASCAR adjacent. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
We've lived near tracks. We like to drive fast. There's a car culture, a fast driving culture, especially in the South. Like
Yeah.
um, and it's like, as much as on the one hand we say that's not for us, then the more we dig we find out how NASCAR adjacent we really are. And it's when you first go to your first race, then you realize, wait, I'm actually about this life. you know,
Yes.
to the degree that I feel welcome. The NASCAR understood 20 years ago the challenge was as much people feeling welcomed into the culture as it was about the popularity and the attractiveness of the sport. And so, again, I was, as you know, we were both at the Chicago Street Race, but one of my nephews was also there.
Yeah.
And the street race wasn't my first NASCAR event. I went to a race in Las Vegas early this year, but it was my first time with the kind of fan experience, being able to walk on the track. As long as there's nothing going on the track, nobody cares.
Yes.
You're literally, the pit crew members are the amount of fan just integration into the
Yeah.
experience is I've never seen in any other sport. I've gone to, go to NBA games. I've gone to
Yeah.
NFL games.
Yeah.
There's places you can go, and
Yeah.
there's places you better not try to go.
That's the truth.
And at NASCAR, it's like, we will tell you when you aren't supposed to be here, when it's not safe or when it's a problem. But generally speaking, it's like it's like a big, giant, huge family barbecue with a race going on.
That's exactly what it is. Collectively across the board in any track or any event or venue that you are at with NASCAR, that's the whole point, right? It's all about the experience, and our drivers are amazing with their fan engagement. For us here at Phoenix Raceway, we have garages in what we called our infield. In those infield garages are the drivers, are the pit crews, and the only thing that separates them from the fans is a really small gate that technically you could step over, which fans are respectful and don't do that. But the reality is that our drivers are just right there talking, having conversations, signing autographs, taking photos. And that is one of the best parts. That is the experience. Like you said, that I was like, I mean, I've been to, like you said, you go to NBA games, and it's not everyone has the opportunity to sit courtside right at an NBA game. But if you do have that opportunity, you still don't have the opportunity to give a high five to like Devin Booker, right? Security will be all over you.
Right, right.
That's just not going to happen. Or even if you have the opportunity to pregame before an NFL game, have the opportunity to go stand on the field before they start. Before they start the game, you will not be standing down there. That's a security hazard, right? And so, because you can't be that close to the players. And so, for us, I mean, when you're on the grid, you're down there, like you said, as long as it is safe, there is a potential. You have pit boxes, you have so many things that are down there when the drivers are actually driving and when they're getting prepared for their craft. So there really isn't anything like a NASCAR experience.
The other thing that I was able to appreciate, again, more at the Chicago Street Race, because again, we were there, I was there doing interviews for this. So again, there is a level of access from media that may even be a little bit deeper than the fans. But I interviewed several, Black pit crew members, including, of course, the barrier breaker, Brianna Daniels, who was an amazing interview. She's just an amazing person. Um, and I didn't, again, as an outsider, as a casual fan, I recognized the driver as an athlete, and we knew there were pit crews, but it wasn't until getting just deeply immersed in the sport you understand that it really is a team sport, and that I didn't know that there were combines to basically draft pit crew members.
Yeah.
Brianna was talking about her combine experience, and that for Drive for Diversity, they recruit former athletes in other sports. Brianna was a basketball player at Division One. I interviewed I can't remember the brother's name, but he was played for the Washington Redskins.
Yeah.
There was someone who was a soccer player at the University of Miami who actually came from Paris. And I'm sorry I'm not calling all their names out, but my point is, now that I'm getting a look at every level of the sports, like any other sport, there's the athlete, the quote unquote star athlete everybody focuses on. There's the team, and one of the drivers, maybe it was Bubba. was saying that it's the difference between 11 seconds to get out of the pit and 9 seconds. There's what I can do while I'm on the track, but there's what they can do when I'm off the track that can make the difference in whether I
That's
come
right.
in first or fifth or eighth or 10th, because it's that close. And so again, now, and then of course, the reason I was looking forward to talking to you, it may be easy to say, okay, you have black people on the team and you have black stars emerging like Roger Carruth and of course Bubba. But then you say, but the sport itself is not diverse at all. And that's the challenge that the NFL is still dealing with.
Mhm.
70% of your athletes are black, but you're still struggling to get coaches and you're still struggling to get ownership.
Yeah.
And now NASCAR is a much younger sport per se than NFL. So you do have Michael Jordan and other black owners. In a way, they're emerging as a younger sport that has, for all its, the burden of the legacy of what it was perceived as, it's a younger sport. So it's making moves that other more established sports maybe it's harder for them to make those changes. My point is, now that I've met people like Eric Ryan, who's VP of Communications, I met all these other people who are in the executive suite of
Yeah.
executing the sport, black, of course, and you
Mhm.
realize this is a top to bottom transformation of the sport for business, because it does make the sport more accessible. You get to access new markets. You grow the fan base. You get access to larger sponsorships. And then I'm Black Enterprise. So I'm looking at, why does this matter
Yeah.
beyond obviously the important social message that it sends. And so again, to talk about, there's a president of a race, and
Yeah.
in a way, the fact that you're black is almost not as amazing as the fact that you're a woman in some ways,
Yeah.
because we think that's
Mhm.
we're still getting used to having women drivers, really. Again,
That's
so
right.
so you can tell how excited I am, and my audience knows I'll get carried away. What do you do? What do you do as the president of a raceway?
Yeah, yeah. So a few things. First and foremost, I don't do anything without my team. So I was lucky enough to be in a space in Arizona where Phoenix Raceway has one of the best teams. I don't just say that because I'm here. Our team is very innovative. We renovated our track back in 2018, so it's like a new track, and so our team has had this ability to be extremely creative and be just making sure that you have a really great experience here in Arizona. And so for Phoenix specifically, we host two NASCAR events per year. In March, we have our spring race, and then of course you and I have talked about this, but we're so fortunate to be able to do this. But we host championships. So the championship race, the end of the season, happens here in Arizona. I mean, I don't know who wouldn't want to be in Arizona in November. It's just a great thing. So we are going on 4 years of hosting championship here specifically in Arizona, and so. Those are the two things that we do. So for me specifically, while we have those two things, our track actually is a venue as well. So we want to be known as a staple in the community. It's open over 200 days per year. So we have multiple events throughout the year as well, outside of NASCAR. So really my job is, one, make sure my team has the tools and everything that they need in order to do their jobs. But two, making sure I spread the message of Phoenix Raceway and NASCAR being a staple within our community. And then as well, making sure that we do things that are sustainable well into the future. So we also have here at Phoenix Raceway a donor advised fund where we are giving money out into the community here to make sure that our community continues to thrive. But for me, I don't want to just give you a check. I don't want to just give you one of those big fake $10,000 checks and then you get the money in the bank and then oh, great, go do your thing. I'm a little bit more ingrained than that. So I want to make sure that I set up programs and do things that are sustainable, so that we get kids in very early. So instead of being like me or like you as well, not being until I'm an adult that I've had the opportunity to come to the raceway and experience what actually happens at the raceway, being able to set up relationships, programs, things that will last well beyond when I'm no longer the president, but something that's sustainable here for our community and hits multiple categories like STEM, make sure that it hits just, sports in general. You talked a little bit about media. Obviously, that being in a sport, no matter what sport you're in, there's so many elements to it. You have media, you have have marketing, you have the venue, you have the sport itself. You could be a driver, you could be a pit crew member. I mean, there's so many things that are associated with the sport. So how do we open that up to the community and let individuals know what the possibility is? I mean, you could be the track president one day as a Black or brown young girl, or as just a young girl in general, no matter what color you are, and really making sure that kids know what's out there and what's available. And if nothing else, it just opens up their mind to being, it's just an experience that they will have for a lifetime that they will always remember. So, when I look at my calendar each day, the thing that I love the most is every day is different. You just never know. I could be doing media. I could be out there at the track doing something at the track. I could be giving a tour. I mean, it could be, or I could be sitting in meetings all day supporting my team. So, each day is something different. But the one thing that I have, and we all do this collectively as a track president, the reason you saw me in Chicago is, NASCAR really functions as a team. We go out there on the circuit. So I have attended multiple races, engaged with multiple teams. So I've gone to North Carolina. You talked a little bit earlier about pit crews. Honestly, I could probably sit all day long and watch them train in a pit crew. I went to Trackhouse Racing. And I mean, every day is like a combine for them. I was exhausted just watching them. But their athletic ability, but it's not necessarily just about their athletic ability. It's about them being on a team. If they do not function as a team, they themselves could get hurt or a driver could get hurt. And it really is a matter of sometimes a life or death. I mean, that car is going over 200 miles an hour. And if those tires are not on there the right way, something really bad could happen. Or if something's wrong with the machine itself, something really bad could happen. And if you're not communicating and doing those right things, we know what could happen and what we don't want to happen. And so it is that's why they train and do the things that they do as pit crews. So that's probably one of my favorite things is being able to be out on the circuit, being in other markets and helping. I mean, when I saw you in Chicago, I mean, I wasn't Latasha Causey, the track president of Arizona. I was just Latasha Causey, a NASCAR employee here to help and host and do what I need to do to make sure that this event is really successful for the team that worked really hard for that. So, and you mentioned individuals like Eric Ryan. Eric Ryan and I talk on a very regular basis. One thing that we do really well, whether it's Eric Ryan or anyone else here at NASCAR, is we make sure we support each other. We talk to each other on a very regular basis. Before I took this job, Black people, right? So before I took this job, our head of HR is John Ferguson. So our chief human resources officer is a Black man. Our chief legal officer is a Black woman. Our head of communications is Eric Ryan, a Black man. Our head of diversity, equity, and inclusion is Brandon Thompson, who is also a Black man. And so there is this group of individuals who we all know where our mindset is. Brandon and Amanda have been with NASCAR for a very long time. And so for the newbies, if you will, coming in, they had very honest and transparent conversations with me from the beginning about why I would want to be part of this NASCAR team. So that's one thing that we do really, really well. And those are just a few individuals that are in higher level positions, but there's so many others of us across the board. When I had my first race in March, I received the day before I was getting ready to go out. So Thursdays is usually your day when you're away from your email, you're out there until the following week. I received a big bouquet of flowers from just a couple of peers or a couple of teammates, if you will, that are within the NASCAR team. My other Black women that were across the board. They are in various roles. Across the organization. And I received a beautiful card from all of them, just showing their support. And so that's what we do. And that's how we make sure that we are all supporting one another and we're here as a team. So it has been just an amazing, amazing journey.
I got to touch on something that something you said kind of touched the tone with me. I realized since Chicago that I think I'm more of a pit crew fan as much as I'm as a driver fan. Like, as I learned, like you said, the precision. Mm-hmm. And, I don't think it's a coincidence that the three people I interviewed, one was a former linebacker for the Washington Redskins. One was a point guard in Division I basketball. And I forget the role of the young lady that played soccer at the University of Miami. but they were all the roles where you have to be the thinker too. The
Yeah,
linebacker, for example, in football is the quarterback of the defense. So it's not just being fast and strong and coordinated. It's your ability to coordinate with everyone around you so that things happen how with precision. So yeah, it takes strength to pull a 75-pound tire off a car and put another one on there while you're kind of squatting down low, at the level, all those things to do to save time when you make these changes. So it's easy to look at the athleticism as just physicality. But your point about no, this is, if anything is off by a second, it's not just the loss of a race; it's a risk of like a life or death or injury. So again, I got a real deep appreciation, like you said, and the fact that you could actually watch the pit crews do what they do. It's like almost watching another game inside the game.
yeah,
But the other
very true.
thing is important, which is about why Black Enterprise exists, why this show exists, and it's even more important than ever. I tell people, because of how the concept you got to meet me, Jim Lita Tillman, and you mentioned STEAM and STEM, and the idea of exposing young people to the many, many career opportunities, professional opportunities that this sport and sports in general can offer. And one of the challenges of what we do, whether we do it in your role or in my role, is that unlike, and I'm much older than you are, when I was a kid, everything you could say you wanted to be when you grow up, you could see. I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a police officer, I'm going to be a fireman, I'm going to be a nurse, and obviously those professions are still important, they're still there. But many of the best job opportunities, career opportunities, are things that are not visible without some intentionality of exposure. So I always say the young person can't have interest if they don't know it exists. Because you go from interest to exposure to experience, and then you feel better able to make a choice that means something. But if you don't even know that, for example, that you could be the president of a raceway, like who
That's
thinks,
right.
if you watch NASCAR all your life, that may never cross your mind. You're only thinking, can I be a driver, or maybe should I be in the pit crew? And so this work of, like you said, not just handing over a check, but being visible, being engaged, because the truth is, I mean, we've seen it over and over again. Black Enterprise has been around 53 years, where somebody says, "Oh, I saw something in your magazine," or "I was at a Women of Power summit, and for the first time, I saw somebody who does this thing." You look at somebody like Sid Marshall as the president of the Mavericks
Yeah, the
after
Mavericks. Yeah,
retiring from a career at AT&T, and now probably the most influential NBA
yeah,
president. Who would have thunk? But
yeah,
her existence, our job at Black Enterprise to showcase you guys is because, like you said, there are some, not just one, probably 10, 15, 20 girls, boys, various backgrounds,
yeah.
gender, sexual orientations who say, it never dawned on me, one, that there was such a job as president of a raceway, and two, that I could do it,
That's right.
you know. And so
That's
again, I
exactly
still thank you that, you know,
right.
you're here with me.
No, no, you're 100% right. And people ask me the question on a regular basis: was it your goal to do that, or did you, was that something that you wanted to do? No, actually, I never in a million years thought that I would be leading, like you just said, leading a raceway. It never crossed my mind that that was something that was even possible. To be honest, because I never, like you said, you don't see it, you didn't see it. I mean, in this job prior to Julie, there was the same person who was here for almost 16 years. And honestly, you didn't really know exactly what the person did. I know they did amazing things and did great work. You just didn't know because it wasn't someone that was in my circle per se. And so I didn't see it. So I didn't know that that was something that existed. But like you, huge sports fan, and I'll go to any sporting event. I love everything about sports. But like you said, it's so much bigger than that. And there's so much opportunity within that that you just don't know about.
And then you add to that challenge, again, speaking to STEAM and STEM. First of all, NASCAR is a great sport because there's all kinds of STEAM and STEM in NASCAR. But
That's right.
but in general, again, getting away from NASCAR and sports in general, like the jobs that I've been doing, even in my profession as a media professional, that I've been doing the last 15 years did not exist before the last 15 years. Like I can't say I was, a college student training to learn how to do online, interviews on a computer for a streaming TV show. So I tell the young people that I mentor, whatever you're going to school for now or whatever you're doing now, what you're ultimately going to do, it probably doesn't exist yet. And that's a
Yeah,
hard thing to do. Like there's not like a pathway to where you're going because where you're going hasn't been invented yet, doesn't exist yet. And that's why exposure is so much more important because even what you learn today will be obsolete. You know, the hardcore learnings will be obsolete because things will have changed. Um,
things change.
so exposure to possibility is just a critical thing for everyone, but certainly for underrepresented populations in any industry or sport.
I agree with that. And, one thing that you and I talked about earlier before we started this conversation is not only is it about exposure, but it's about being ready. So being ready and open for those opportunities, right? Like if you stay ready, I mean, I know we all say this all the time, you don't have to get ready, but that's a true statement. I mean, we say it when we're joking all the time, but the reality is if you are prepared, you do educate yourself, you do put yourself in spaces where you are networked, you are exposed for opportunities. Then you will be ready for that next opportunity. Even if in that moment, like for me, I'm like, I don't know if I can actually run a raceway. Why? But the reality is, why wouldn't I be? I have been preparing for this moment every step of the way. And I know that this opportunity wouldn't have existed or wouldn't have been presented to me if it wasn't meant for me for right now. And for what, like you said, no matter what, no matter how long I'm in this opportunity or what it sets me up for next, it's because I was prepared and it was because I was ready and exposed in that case. And so I always tell young people, please be ready. Be ready at any time and be open to whatever those opportunities are that perhaps come your way. At least open the door to a conversation.
Yeah, and I tell people the definition of readiness is two things about your journey that you're saying, but you're also exemplifying. It's being open, not being so into, well, I don't do that or I've never done that, so I shouldn't do that. And then being conscious of being open from a relationship building standpoint. Meeting people, exploring new things, being genuinely interested in other people, helping other people, even if they're doing something that's different than what you're doing, because often those, like you said, you weren't thinking about, ooh, that's the job I want someday. He came to you and said, you're the right person for this job, and I'm going to make the case for that. So you believe it, and so much opportunity. I mean, certainly now, but even early in my career, I only have one job that ever got because I applied for it.
Yeah.
Like maybe the first one out of college. Everyone after that, somebody came to me and said, "There's this thing happening over here. I think you'd be good for it." Or they told someone else about me and they called me. And so this idea of being open and prepared is also about engaging in real ways and building relationships, not because you're going to get something back, because you don't know,
Yeah.
but because if you are someone who delivers value all the time, people remember those people. And then when the opportunity comes up, they say, oh, you know what? There was that sister Latasha that I met,
Yep.
and you know what? I'm going to give her a call. This I don't know if this is for her, and I tell you so many times, it's the opportunity will chase you, as opposed to you always having to chase the opportunities.
That's it.
Especially important today.
Yes. No, I could not agree with you more there. Like you said, you have to be open to the possibilities.
Yep, yep. So again, yeah, you're teaching, you're dropping words, you're dropping gems, you're dropping mics. So I'm interested in your take in where NASCAR is on this journey as it comes up on this 20th anniversary drive for diversity. I emphasize that this is not just about diversity from a racial standpoint or even an American standpoint, because NASCAR is really putting its footprint down as a global sport. It should be noted that a guy from Australia won the Chicago Street Race, who was based in a similar type of racing uh,
Mhm.
competition in his country that was kind of NASCAR like, but not NASCAR, but was able to adapt to NASCAR well enough to come with relatively short window of training and win. And in a very exciting race, by the way. It was great. It was very entertaining. So we're talking about, like with all sports and all media platforms, there are global implications. There's a reason why you got NBA basketball players from all over the world now, and because if you're going to do this as a industry and maximize its potential not only as a sport but as a business, it's no longer just about, are there black people here? Are there women here? Again, the fact that one of the pit crew members that I interviewed in Chicago actually is from Paris. It was only in America because she got recruited to play soccer for the University of Miami. So with all of that backdrop that I've just painted and everything we've talked about, where is NASCAR today, and where do you see it going? And you can just do it in the context of what you're doing specifically as a NASCAR executive who's
Yeah.
Raceway, or you could do it in the broader, what's the future of the sport? If you looked up 10 years from now at the Latasha Causey experience and what that meant for NASCAR going forward, what would you hope to see?
Yeah, I think that there are a few things. So, you mentioned this a little bit earlier in regards to kind of where we are today. So NASCAR has been around for 75 years, but has had a Drive for Diversity program for 20 years. And I don't feel like there are a lot of not just sports, but organizations that can say that they have been working towards diversity for 20 years. I think, we've all been through this DEI cycle, right? Sometimes it's elevated, sometimes it's not elevated. Right now, we're in a whole controversial situation with the whole affirmative action and all the rules and all of those things, which we'll leave that aside for now.
Right.
But I mean, I think that there are so many things that collectively across the board just have happened over the years for diversity, whether you're talking NASCAR or not. So I think one of the really great things about NASCAR is that NASCAR has been doing this for a long time, and it isn't brand new, which is why I think you see today, present day, individuals like a Michael Jordan, like a Pitbull who goes by Armando when he is in racing, who are owners in the sport. And there's others that you wouldn't even know are part of the sport as well, whether they are an owner, whether they are associated with a driver, whether they're associated with just a team in general. I mean, there's so many individuals who have opened up their hearts and their minds to NASCAR, and I think that that's progress, right? That has progressed over the years. So I think that NASCAR is in a really good space in regards to that, in regards to opening up and making sure that people know that they are welcome, no matter who you are, right? Whether you're black, white, brown, Mexican, whatever, it doesn't matter. You are welcome, and I think that that's one of the things that NASCAR has done a really, really good job at right now. I do think you mentioned this earlier in regards to drivers. We've had this Drive for Diversity program. We do have an opportunity from a female perspective. We do have an opportunity from those of color, but that's like collectively across the board for the sport. So you have programs like the Urban Youth Racing Program in Philadelphia, who in Philly, they are teaching young children of color at a very young age about the possibilities of sports. So we have to continue to do things like that across the board because racing could be anywhere. Our drivers go all over the place to race, but they just don't have the access or the tools to be able to get to that point. I mean, you talked a little bit about like Raja Caruth. Raja is just a phenomenal individual. He has a phenomenal family. Raja's father, obviously being a professor at Howard University, and just being a really, really well-rounded family that's connected, right? I mean, I think that they have some connections, and I think that, they are doing everything that they can to make sure that Raja makes it in the sport because he's passionate about it. And so I feel like, we have to continue to do that, create opportunities like those for the Raja Caruths of the world, obviously Bubba being as well where he is. So it's really about being able to provide opportunities. So that's where I would really like to see the sport going, is that, having more as it pertains to drivers, having more females, having more, those of color. I think we do a really good job on the pit crews and the teams. They all do a really good job. Even like at, 2311 Racing, Michael Jordan's, Michael and Denny's team, they have an individual who leads their diversity program, a director of diversity. I don't know that other teams have that. I think Craig is probably the first person in that role for a sport and a team. So that to me tells me that teams are progressing and that they are trying to figure out ways to engage individuals that want to be part of the sport. So I think that once we get to a point where we see, others everywhere. And again, like you said, individuals from Australia, individuals from other countries, collectively across the board, being able to have access, truly full access to our sport. I think that and fans. I mean, let's not forget about our fans, right? We cannot forget about our fans. NASCAR has the most loyal fans. And that's one of the things that I love the most. I mean, our fans here in Phoenix, I mean, and everywhere, they come in the Monday before a race and then they leave a Monday after. So they're here 7 days. One of my favorite things is going out there. I mean, we in Arizona, we have a very large space. Most tracks have a very large space, where you have acres of land where your campers are out there. And I mean, Alfred, the people that are out there camping and enjoying the sport have been doing so. I mean, we've been around for 75 years. Some of them are like, I've been out here for 40 years, or I've been out here for 30 years doing this. I look forward to it every time it happens. So being able to provide that opportunity for even more people, I think people would be shocked at the possibilities and what actually happens in a campground for 7 days. So it's just there's just so many great things about the sport. But I think that we, like everyone, have the opportunity to open up the door for more and for others. Keep those that we have and keep progressing and keep adding to the mix.
Yeah, what I see is you have kind of the perfect storm of possibility for the growth. First of all, you have, like you said, this loyal, established kind of, hard rock ground, this fan base that's there. That's like a rock. It's the great foundation to build on. Then you have depth, meaning it's multi-generational. I have to note in Chicago how many people had their kids and their toddlers. Like, it's literally the sport that a kid can say, "Yeah, I went to my first race when I was 5, and I got my flag and I got my, the paraphernalia is really fun." And again, the close proximity to the drivers and others that you don't get in other sports. So you have the depth, you have the foundation. That's the legacy of NASCAR. You have this multi-generational family, as you said, driven depth, that this is the kind of thing that the whole family can go to. Unfortunately, for a lot of reasons, some of the other major sports, it's a lot harder to enjoy in person with the whole family, whether it's the cost of the seats or whatever.
Yep.
And then you have this other element that you're going to use the broad word diversity. But again, I want to move outside of diversity as how many Black people, how many women, how many Latino people, but more that when you talk about globalization, which is why I'm meeting the young lady when I asked her where she's from, and I'm expecting her to say Detroit, and she goes, "Oh no, I'm from Paris," and I'm like, "Wait, how'd you get here?" And then you remember, as we saw in all the footage of everything happening in the post George Floyd activity, that when we talk about diversity, there are Black people in Paris, there are Latino people in England. That this is no longer these pockets of what we consider diversity. Diversity can be a Black girl from Paris who went to Miami to play soccer and now is in the pit crew of a NASCAR team. And
Yep.
so when you talk about the globalization of the sport, when you talk about Giannis in the NBA, the Greek
Yep.
freak, and nobody thought about diversity in the NBA and say, we're going to have this guy who's a star Black player, but he's not
Mm-hmm.
from Chicago or LA. He's going to be from Greece,
Right.
and so that's, I think, the possibility that I think that those corporations, entities, sports, whatever you want to, who are cutting edge in this space, are recognizing what the possibility is, not just from the standpoint of doing quote unquote what's right socially, but from the standpoint of what is this the potential if we really want to be a globally relevant, in this case, sport, business,
Yeah.
or whatever. And so, like I said, if the excitement is, if I seem like I'm a little overexcited, is because I am. When I get excited by
Oh,
possibility, no matter where I find it.
yep.
And I'm just looking at this, and I have to say this, Latasha, I was also one of the ones at the beginning of this journey. When NASCAR started saying they want to do this, and of course, like you could point to any institution in America, and they got bad stories, things that things we don't want to talk about today. But and I was one of those like, yeah, I believe it when I see it. I'm not, I'm not going to be at the race. Let me. Okay, I drive for diversity, and like you said, we've seen diversity programs come and go in organizations.
Yep.
It's in style and it's not in style. So, for like you said, for a 20-year consistent rain or shine, good days, bad days, um, there's a reason why you're sitting in that chair, why Eric is. That again, the progress is undeniable. Is it done? Nobody's saying it is, but it's undeniable. And I'm one of those people at the beginning. I was like, yeah, drive for diversity. That sounds cute. We'll see.
That's cute.
Right. Ooh, how long they gonna stick with this? Yeah. You're showing if there's some commitment to it, and it's again, and it's built into the larger fabric of what makes sense for the sport. The
Yeah.
integration of Major League Baseball made sense for the sport. Nobody remembers when, and I wasn't born then either, but when basketball, pro basketball, was an all-white sport. But as long as it's limited to a small market, it's always going to be a small sport. And growth requires inclusion. That's what it boils down to.
Yes, you need to put that up on a quote somewhere. Growth requires inclusion. You couldn't have summed that up better. You know, I think one of the things that we talk about, whether we're talking sports, no matter what we're talking about, just economic impact in general, one of the things that we always talk about from an economic standpoint, if you do not include everyone, you will not grow. You will lose money, you will lose assets, no matter what, if you do not provide access for everyone to have the ability. And I know, there are certain times when we, go on blackouts and we do all of these things and you feel and you do know the impact, but it's not just about us, it's about everyone, right? If you do not include everyone, you will not grow. It's just it's point blank, no matter what industry, no matter what organization, no matter what product you're selling, if you don't sell your product to everyone, you will stay small. Your product will be little forever. So if that's what you want and you don't want to grow and you don't want to have large access to everyone, then you don't include everyone. So growth requires inclusion. And I think that's the best quote I've heard today.
And I came up with it just off the top of my head. I need to.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
So, we've got a couple more minutes. Your time is so valuable. I'm so glad you've been so generous with it. But what I really do want to do with every Beyond the Hype interview, obviously, we can keep this conversation going on. What's the best way for our audience to follow what you're doing, to follow Phoenix Raceway, whether that's social, web, follow NASCAR in general? Because this is, again, this is a continuing conversation. And I'm telling you guys in the Beyond the Hype audience, I'm going to talk to other people in NASCAR. I think there's going to be multiple interviews around this anniversary of the Drive for Diversity. But what's the best way for people to continue to follow you and what you're doing?
Absolutely. Well, there are a few ways. Obviously, I always point people to the Phoenix Raceway page. So if you go to phoenixraceway.com, definitely go there. All of our social media handles on Phoenix Raceway, but as well for me individually, I do have a Phoenix Raceway Prez page on Instagram. I do want to make sure that people have the ability to follow me there. I do talk about, I do fan engagement, have some interviews on there. This will be on there once this is ready to go. As well, LinkedIn. I'm huge into connections. We talked about network earlier. I'm very open to that. So Latasha Causey just on LinkedIn. Definitely feel free to follow me there. I keep all things business on LinkedIn, as we all should. And so that, from a business perspective, that's probably the best place and the best spot. But again, I'm always open to networking, and I want fans to come to Phoenix Raceway. Individuals like yourself who are on the East Coast are always welcome to come to our races. Like I said, who wouldn't want to be here in March or November in Arizona? And so I would love for I want your fans to know that they are welcome to Phoenix Raceway. We are going to continue to do exciting and engaging things so that everyone knows that I'm like a walking party. And so my team just kind of, I every day I'm like, oh, Lord, let me pray for my team today, because who knows what idea I'm going to come up with today to make sure that we're having a good time. So it's fun here in Phoenix. So follow me anywhere, and let's make connections.
Well, I'm all down for the walking party. And Latasha didn't pay me to say this, and NASCAR didn't either. But I highly recommend you download the NASCAR app. In Chicago, to be able to look on the phone and literally see cameras all over the track. Again, guys, this fan immersion is no joke. So most sports, you have the big screens around the stadium, you can see stuff. But I'm literally on my phone, and they're showing every camera on the track, and you literally know where the drivers are and who's coming next. And The app was amazing. I have to say the app worked.
Yes, the app is awesome, and we make sure that we have Wi-Fi so that our fans can enjoy the app at our tracks. And so, you have to download the app. I mean, that's how you know what's happening and what's going on at each of our locations. So definitely make sure you do that.
Yep, no doubt. Latasha, thank you so much. I deeply appreciate it. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Definitely, exactly. Coming to Phoenix Raceway. Can't wait to join the walking party, whatever that might bring. And just thanks for everything that you do and all you represent for NASCAR, for Black people, for Black women, and for all those people who I think one day I'm going to hear somebody say, I'm doing what I'm doing at NASCAR because I saw your interview with Latasha Causey on Beyond the Hype. And that's what we do over here at Black Enterprise. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
Yep, and that's it. We've done it again. You know how we do it here. Another great edition of Beyond the Hype. Thanks for joining us. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior Vice President and Executive Editor-at-Large at Black Enterprise, and we'll see you next time. Take care.